as Midline had done a handful of shows opening up for Motley Crue on their Greatest Hits tour, and that was pure insanity being in that environment. But of all the people and all the chaos that was going on, Viggy and then their head of security for Motley Crue. Those two people, out of like everything, were like level-headed, common sense people. And so, when we were doing those shows, Tommy Lee's drum tech, Viggy, was super nice to us, which was a huge relief in all of that chaos. And then a few years later, Midline did a show with Godsmack here in Boise at the hockey arena, which the name of that place has changed so many times. I don't know what it was called at the time. But when we were loading in, Godsmack was doing their sound check. And so, of course, we had all our cases and everything staged and ready to go. And Scott looked back, and we saw Viggy was sitting there. And so Viggy was drum teching for Sully. And if any of you have been to a Godsmack concert, Shannon Larkin and Sully Erna do this drum battle thing, which is really, really cool. And it's evolved and changed over the years. But Shannon Larkin always has his own guy, and Sully Erna sometimes has a different tech. And so Viggy was teching, and he remembered us from when we did those shows with Motley Crue. And it was really cool to connect with him again there. And I remember specifically playing that show, and as I'm playing, I look off to stage left, and in the arena, in the seats, kind of behind the curtain, Shannon Larkin was standing there like this, and I think he watched like 5 or 6 songs, and he's giving me a thumbs up and cheering us on, which was really, Shannon Larkin's an amazingly nice guy. And then off the stage right, I could see down the steps, Viggy was standing there watching. And as soon as we played our last song and I was walking off stage and I started coming down the stairs, Viggy met me at the bottom of the stairs and gave me this big bear hug. I'll never forget. And he goes, "You're one hell of a drummer." And that really was cool coming from all the people that he's worked for, Tommy Lee and Shannon Larkin and countless others. That was really cool to be greeted with that right after playing. And then, of course, at the end of the night, we all hung out late till they basically kicked us all out. And so that was really cool. And then not long after that, we played with Seven Dust, and that was at I don't think it was the Knitting Factory yet. I think it was still called the Big Easy. And so that will tell you, like, it was late 2000s. Seven Dust was arriving, and the first person through the door was Viggy, and because he was drum teching for Morgan Rose. And he saw me and he goes, "Fred!" Came up and gave me a big hug. And so we spent the day hanging out with Viggy and with Morgan and LeJean from Seven Dust, and it was really, really cool. And then I saw Viggy off and on. I'd go to a show and he would be drum teching for whoever. And then I hadn't had contact with him for a long time. And so when I saw early this morning that he had passed away, I was disappointed, to say the least. Not somebody I knew really, really close. So that part of the emotion hasn't surfaced, and I don't know if it will, but I'm really glad for the time that I did get to spend with him. And so when I talk about opening up for Motley Crue, the show itself was great, but all the stuff behind the scenes was stressful and difficult to navigate. And so Viggy being there, dealing with him in whatever capacity that was needed was really appreciated and super cool. So, which is funny because Motley Crue was probably one of the most difficult bands to deal with that not Motley Crue, the band themselves. They're people. And then Godsmack was probably one of the best experiences we've ever had opening up for a band. So it was completely two different worlds, which was big. And Severnus was great too, but Godsmack just took us like, they treated us like royalty. It was not only was the band cool, but their crew and everybody was top notch. It was an awesome experience. So I was bummed to hear that news. I was hoping that someday our paths would cross again. And Viggy also in recent years had been part of it. There's a name for it. I can't remember what it is. But when you go see these big production shows with all the video and lighting, and they have pyro and all of that stuff, the program used to run that was developed by Viggy. And so his legacy will continue on for sure with that. Like all the stuff you see with Trans-Siberian Orchestra, I'm sure was something he concocted and put together, the program that makes those shows possible. So really great stuff. And I was happy to meet him and have that connection. So, all right, now we'll get to the important stuff. So I put in the title, Hope in the Face of Rejection. And as so many of you out there already know, that I've been attacking my music career on the level of making the right connections with people and getting on the radar so that they can know who I am and what I'm capable of doing, and all of those things that go along with it. And, I'm 51 years old, if that's not a secret. So, you would say that time's not on my side necessarily, but there are drumming job opportunities that are definitely out there that exist. It's just getting to the point where when those opportunities come up and they need that position filled, they say, I want Fred. Give me Fred Fisher. So that's my main focus, other than teaching and tracking drums and those kind of things. So I got that title, Hope in the Face of Rejection, where that kind of spawned this whole thought, was if anybody's watched the I think it's on Netflix, or it might be whatever the streaming service is that has this, Murders in the Building, which stars Steve Martin and Martin Short and Selena Gomez. They had a new show come out recently, and Steve Martin's character's monologue starts with maintaining hope in the face of rejection. And I didn't even finish watching the show, but that idea sparked what I'm going to talk about, and I came out here and wrote it down. So it made me reflect on my journey so far with drumming. Is one, I was 10 years old. I fell in love with drums because at the church I grew up going to, there was this drummer, Dave Goff. If any of you local musicians know who Dave Goff is, Dave Goff was my first drum teacher I ever had. A little bit older than I am, because he was in the youth group, and he was doing this concert. He, our pianist, and a couple singers. And I was just mesmerized, just like, drums. That's all I could hear and see were drums. Fell in love with drums at 10. Started taking drum lessons, got involved with school band, all of those things. All of those things that most aspiring musicians go and do. So, as I got older, taking lessons and getting better, because I just love to play. I was so in love with playing drums. I still am in love with playing drums. But as you play, you hear yourself getting better, and that's inspiring. So then that pushes you to continue to work at your craft. So you're developing this craft. I think when in Steve Martin's show, he was talking about this related to like a ballerina. This little girl fell in love with all of that. But at any rate, so as I kept playing and playing, I wanted to play in a band, in my own band. So I would put bands together, and they would be short-lived, for whatever reason. Maybe the other people I was playing with didn't have that same kind of drive, and that drove me crazy. And as I got older, later in high school and right out of high school, I put a band together, and then somebody would leave because they were going to college, which I thought that was the most ridiculous thing ever. Oh, you want security? I'm going to take this big risk, and I didn't understand that. So I would have bands and put them together, and you just keep working, and then you're doing shows, and so I was not not intentionally. I don't know if it's consciously or subconsciously, but I just knew I wanted something more. I wanted something more. I wanted something better. And looking for people who were in alignment with my same goals and dreams. And that eventually landed me in the band Midline in the early 90s. And that band has been something that has continued to go until this very day. Of course, there's been changes along the way, but I'm still there and working towards this goal. And then, that band's not that busy anymore, but I'm still on this path. And as I've gotten older, I have some people that have been mentoring me that have been really encouraging, saying, yes, this is very, very possible, and you just need to keep doing these things and reaching out to these people and doing this work, and do all of that without worrying about the outcome of it. Because if I continue to do all the work and continue to work hard, then the outcome that I'm looking for, it's going to happen. I don't know when. So, and in recent, over the last 2 years, I've had people that have messaged me, or have left me phone messages, or that I've seen face to face, that have either kindly said, this isn't possible, or they've been very rude in the way that they've said, stop doing what you're doing. It's impossible. Nothing's going to happen for you. One guy even left me a voicemail. I'm not going to tell you who it was, but he left me a voicemail and I kept it. And it said, you can't make it as a musician. You're not as good as you think you are. And nobody cares that much about you. And, which could make you mad to hear that to start. And then some people, when they hear that enough from people, they go, you know what, you're right. I'm not good enough. Nobody cares about me. So what am I doing? I don't believe that at all. And the people who are encouraging me still and are the ones that are really helping move my career forward. In fact, I do have a musician friend in my circle who calls me every day now and says, Fred, what have you done for your music career today? And and it's a really great motivator, because did I send an email? Did I connect with this person? Even if it's simple as just maintaining my current situation with teaching and with recording and those kind of things. I see my new friend Bart Robley has just popped on, and he is another guy that I recently connected with. I told you this musician friend of mine calls me every day and says, what have I done for my music career? One of those things on my list about 2 weeks ago now was to connect with Bart. And Bart was generous enough with his time to spend some time on the phone with me, and then we did a Zoom meeting on expanding my teaching capabilities through online lessons and being able to teach from the road. So his friendship and his information I got from him was huge step forward for me, and so I really, really appreciate all of that, Bart. So yeah, he was one of those people. But like I said, there's always somebody along the way who's saying, nope, you can't do this. And case in point, like moving forward, I keep growing my circle of people. I was actually suggested, I play with Cliff Miller and travel with him quite a bit. Cliff found a guy that he made him aware what am I trying to say? Cliff ran across this TikTok, and this TikTok guy does like mentoring stuff, coaching for other musicians. And this guy said to make a list of 100 people that I wanted to connect with, and then start working that list and work that list over and over. And so I started. I can't remember what the number is. I have the list right here. I'm not going to show you the list, but made this list, and I have 44 people on this list. The first 15 to 20 names was really easy to come up with. It was people that I wanted to connect with. So this is something I'm working on every day, is adding to this list. It gets harder actually to build this list than I thought it would be. But out of these 44 people that I've connected with, I've got little check marks with them. I think that I've connected with 32 of those people. So well over half the list that I have, but I still have a lot of work to do on deciding who those people are that I want to connect with. So let's see. Anthony is here, and Rudy. Anthony says, "What the heck? Haters are all around us. You'll make it, brother. I live vicariously through you." Oh, thanks, Anthony. Hey, you remember when our bands were on tour together and we were at the Guitar Center on Sunset, and you and I were walking through that. I don't know what Guitar Center's like anymore in California, but I know the one here in Boise is like a ghost town a little bit, which is unfortunate. But Anthony, do you remember us walking through there, and they had like some Zildjian and Sabian pre-packed cymbals? You know, you could buy. There was like a Morgan Rose one from. I think that was when Morgan was still with Zildjian, and you said one day you're going to have your name on your cymbals. Well, I have that with Soul Tone cymbals at the moment. So I think about that moment every once in a while when I'm looking at my cymbals. Yes, I do. Yeah, that was a great little tour that we did. Rudy, never give away your power to others. Yeah, exactly. If you believe in yourself and work hard, the opportunities will come to you. Exactly. So, Rudy, I had this really cool opportunity. So here's the thing, like networking. I've mentioned Matt Starr many times as being this huge mentor influence on my music career, and you know, Matt's that guy that's out there being a hired gun and working for these different bands. And you know, Matt had worked his way up through playing cover gigs, and he said multiple times in his videos where he said, I didn't want to cover these songs. I want to play these songs with the people who wrote them. And so that's, you know, his motivation ended with him being Ace Frehley's drummer. And then he's toured with Mr. Big. And recently he did Kicks earlier in the summer, I believe. Lots of great stuff there. So he's one guy that's never going to come to me and go, look, dude, hang it up. He's not that guy. But I have those people around me that have you know, like, what are you doing? Like I said before. So, but my network of people, and even through my students, like I have some students who are working drummers playing around town, doing their thing. It's not that I need to teach them how to play drums necessarily, but how to just be a better drummer at what they already do. And they're getting great results through that. And so if they're getting great results, they're becoming a better drummer, then their band becomes better as a result of that. And if their band is better, then they get better opportunities. So it's this whole trickle down effect. So at any rate, one of my musician friends in town, Gary Tackett, who is a guitar player that moved here from Nashville, he's got a pretty nice resume of stuff that he's done with huge named country artists. He lives here, and he's well aware of what I'm working on. And so he's one of those people that has been helping me connect with people. And Gary and I have a trust in our relationship. You know, he knows what I'm capable of, and he knows what it's like to hang out with me, and all. You know, we're friends, and friends know things about each other. So it's pretty cool. Um, he has been friends with Walfredo Junior Reyes, who is the drummer for the band Chicago, and his nickname is Wally. They call him Wally's, and Wally's been playing with Chicago a little over 10 years as a hired gun, and he's played with Santana and he's played with Steve Winwood. Great drummer, obviously great drummer, or you're not going to have those gigs, right? Uh, so Chicago was in town on Sunday, and Gary being friends with Wally, and then some other musicians in town, John Klein and Jim Reidenbaugh, also have a relationship with Wally. And so I'm just sitting on the couch on Sunday, drinking coffee, watching TV. It's about 11 o'clock ish, and I get a text message from Jim that says, "Hey, I know this is last minute, but me and Gary and John are getting together with Walfredo for lunch at 1 o'clock. Do you want to join us?" So this wasn't something I asked for or was like, "Hey, if you guys get the chance, I'd love to meet him." I never said any of that, but those guys know what I'm trying to do with my music career, and so they thought, "Hey, we're going to have lunch with Wally. Maybe Fred wants to join us." And so they invited me down, and of course I went. Mary dropped me off, and so I think we hung out with him for almost 3 hours before he had bus call to go to the venue for sound check and all of that, and that turned into having tickets to go see the show, and then a VIP pass for after show. And it was really, really cool to connect with Wally, and now he and I have been able to message each other since then, which is a great connection. And Gary, so I went there not to tell Wally about my story. I went to meet him and to observe and listen and be a part of the conversation when it was appropriate for me to do so. One of his things that he talked about was, I think, his very first gig with Chicago. Right before his first gig, he got the flu pretty bad. So he was talking about playing shows and being sick, and that the show has to go on, and these kind of things. And then he said, because I'm a drummer, he asked, "Have you ever had to have, these obstacles to overcome?" And I said, "Oh yeah, there was a band I was filling in with. I had been rehearsing with them. I got in a car accident the night before the show and shattered my left wrist." I laugh now, but it wasn't funny when it happened. So I show up to the show the next day, walking in with my arm in a cast. I remember the bass player just went, "No way!" So I'm on pain pills, so I'm a little out of my mind and feeling okay. And I said, they're like, "We'll cancel right now." I'm like, "No, I'm pretty sure I could play this." So I did the Def Leppard thing that night, and Wally was blown away by that story. And then the other, I've had a cold before when I've had to play live. I'm sure most of you musicians out there have had, struggled through a show not feeling well. I had this double ear infection. It was so bad, and the pressure inside of my head and my ears was just undescribable. How much pain was there, and Midline was doing a headlining show. So it was our show, and we couldn't cancel that show. I literally had the thought go through my mind, if I just took an ice pick and shoved it in my ear to like relieve this pressure, I would feel better. Obviously that would be a very bad idea, but I was that's what it felt like. If I could just do that, I would feel better. And so I was able to be seen by a doctor the next morning and got antibiotics and these ear drops and things. But Wally had also told me like that he's had to deal with weird pressures in his ear from ear infections and things like that. And so, we connected on things like that. But I didn't go to Wally and say, Hi, I'm Fred Fisher. I'm from Boise, Idaho. I play the drums. I teach drum lessons and I record. And my next goal in my life is to become a touring drummer. What can you do for me? I didn't say any of that at all because I didn't need to tell him my story. It was about his story and letting him talk and letting him lead the way in the conversation instead of coming across like I need something from this guy in order to move forward with my goal. It's just it's just another name I was able to add to my list now to keep in contact with. And these relationships develop over time. They're not anything like they just met me and went, "Oh, you want a job here? Here's a job you could go do." None of that happened. Let's see. Anthony is. Let's see. I'm going to attempt this because I try this every once in a while. Just type on see more, and my phone doesn't like to do that. Why? I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm on my phone. I have a blood donation one day and then had to play a show in Jordan Valley. I honestly hardly remember anything about that. So, did that make you weak there, Tony? I don't know why this won't let me do this. I don't know why. Now you guys all feel like you're in an earthquake. Had a blood donation, yeah. Now maybe it'll let me do it. Nope, cancel. All right, I'll have to read the rest of your comment later because it's just not cooperating. I have this happen every Tuesday where I'm trying to see the. Oh, see, now it just worked. I always hardly remember anything about that show. Jeff said it went good, but again, can't really remember. Yeah, because you're basically sick. That you couldn't remember because you were feeling ill, but you got the job done. So that part of it's good, and that now you have that story too. Like I said, I think we've all experienced having to do shows where we're not feeling very well in whatever capacity that might be. But all of that to say, like on this path, and I feel like at 51, I'm closer than I ever have been because I think I'm taking the right choices, the right actions now, meeting the right people. Um, there's a couple movies that I really really like. One is called The Rookie. It's the story of Jimmy Morris, the baseball player, and um, so in that movie they show a little kid, just like I mentioned before, a little kid who fell in love with baseball and learned his craft, and he was a pitcher, and as he got older through high, now I can't remember if this happened in high school or college or maybe I don't know a lot about baseball, so I'm probably not going to say all the right things, but the minor leagues, that's before, yeah, this should be, I don't remember where in that story, but he threw his arm out and he couldn't pitch anymore. So his dream was over, and he became a high school science teacher, and he was in a military family, so they moved and moved and moved and moved and moved, and they ended up in Texas. And in a very little small town where they didn't have a baseball program. I think if you look at his real life, he played baseball and football, and because I think when you're in a small town like that, all the same guys do all the sports. So yeah. Oh, you're bouncing it. That's cool. Yeah, you can catch the rest, man. We're at the 40-minute mark. So anyway, Jimmy Morris, he became the baseball coach at the high school, and the team wasn't doing very well, and so he was trying to find a way to motivate his ball players and his students at the same time. And they all knew that he had kept pitching even though he had thrown his arm out. So that was like a thing that he liked to do personally, was even though his career was over, at least in the minds of people that make those decisions, he kept pitching, and he had been through surgeries and these kind of adversities, and so he kept working and working and working on pitching. Didn't realize that he was building his arm back up, and so sometimes he would be pitching at these baseball practices, and the catcher and some of the other kids on the team said, "Man, every time you throw, it just hurts." Like they didn't realize how fast he was throwing. So they said, if we start winning these games, then Coach Morris, you have to go and try out for a Major League Baseball, or just try out for trying to get into on a minor or major league team. He went and he was pitching 98, 99 mile per hour fastballs, and they had him try out multiple times. One, they thought the radar guns were not working right. Like, how could this guy who's much older than everybody else be out pitching them? Because he still had the talent, even though he was well past the age bracket that they wanted players, and ended up in the major leagues for a few years doing that. And the other movie that we like to watch is Invincible, and it's the story of Vince Papale playing for the Philadelphia Eagles. And he didn't play any college football. He was struggling to find work in Philadelphia, and there was a big union strike and all this stuff. I don't remember what year. I think this might be the late 70s, early 80s. But anyway, so he was a part-time bartender. He was a part-time substitute teacher, all of these things. But he had kept in great shape, and he was really, really fast. And so they had the new Philadelphia Eagles coach had this historic thing happen where he invited anybody to come try out for the Eagles. So they were getting all this press and everything because the Eagles hadn't been doing very well. Well, they went through this whole lot, tryout process, and at the very end, they decided to give one guy a chance, and that was Vince Papale. And this was another example of, like, his wife left him, said, "You're never going to amount to anything. You'll never be anything. You're never going to do. Nobody cares about you." Those kind of things. With Jimmy Morris, they said, "You're too old. You're going to throw your arm out. Nobody pitches like that." And he comes along and he's just mopping the floor with these younger guys. So those two movies mean something to me, just especially after this guy left me this voicemail that I'm never going to delete about, I'm not as good as I think that I am, and nobody cares about me, and those kind of things. And so I guess that might keep me motivated in some way. So maintaining hope in the face of rejection, I think is important. Don't let the naysayers keep you from trying to achieve your dreams, and get in alignment with those people who are pursuing their dreams and living their dreams. And those are the people that you want to take advice from. So I think I hit all the points.